everyone, and welcome to another exciting live Spoilercast. I'm your host, Admiral Logan, and tonight we're talking about the second season of Netflix Daredevil. Guys, we're already past the second season of this show. It's crazy. I feel like we just did the first one, and we've already had Jessica Jones, and we're geared up for Luke Cage. Guys, we are spoiled right now with superhero stuff and with Marvel things in particular. It's crazy how often we're getting this stuff. And so once again, we come to you with a spoiler cast. And tonight we have something of a slim panel. Hopefully Manos is able to jump in here in a little bit, but he's been having some technical difficulties tonight. We've got to figure out his audio situation. He had this problem last week, and we're trying to help him fix it. So anyway, let's introduce the couple of folks that I've got with me tonight. First of all, it's Dan Torrey.
Hey, everybody.
And the magnanimous Jackson Rasco.
Howdy.
Guys, I just spent my entire day rewatching this show. I was working on Superhero Rewind through part of the week and doing a bunch of other things, doing some stuff in the house here. I've got my kitchen being redone, and so that's been dealing with that has been distracting. So anyway, I just got around to rewatching this yesterday into today, and so I just got finished rewatching it. I've been doing that all day long. So we're going to go ahead and start talking about it for you. We'll be here for about an hour, and as I said, hopefully Manos will be able to jump in. Steve said he might be able to get in later. He's at work tonight, and everybody else is busy with other things. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. Thanks a lot, everybody that's watching live. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. And if you're watching after the fact, thanks for that as well, of course. And feel free throughout the show to leave your questions and comments about the second season of Daredevil. Anything you'd like to see us talk about, we will occasionally take a look at the chat and talk to you folks directly. I want to go round robin, as we always do with the Spoilercast, and find out what each of the panelists' favorite and least favorite thing about the season was and how it sizes up next to season one. And let's start with everybody's favorite Daredevil fan, Dan Torrey.
I like this season a lot. I thought it was pretty good. I'm not sure where I'd place it in the ranking it beside season one, because I like season one a lot too. But I liked this one a lot simply because we were furthering a lot of the stuff that we were dealing with in season one. This one seems to be Matt Murdock's primary struggle seems to be sort of the opposite of what the classic Spider-Man struggle is, where it's like the Spider-Man no more kind of thing. Matt Murdock is thinking about giving up his civilian identity and becoming the superhero all the time. He's sort of losing faith in the system and the rule of law. And that's an inherent contradiction in the character, so that's the cool thing to play with. And one of the things I always found to be most interesting about the character. And the Punisher is used as sort of the inciting incident that makes him sort of think that he might have to be Daredevil all the time, and Elektra as well. So all that stuff worked pretty well for me. I'm going to have to watch it again and see how I feel about the ending of the show, because I've heard people say they have reservations about the way it ends, and I don't have those at this point. But maybe as we get into the discussion, maybe my opinion will change. I'm not sure. But all the way through, I think I enjoyed it pretty consistently. It was good.
Did you have any major issues or reservations that you thought of besides the ending?
Not particularly. I was just really intrigued by the setup that we're doing as well. That's one of the other things I wanted to mention. The struggle of this sort of being Matt Murdock struggling with maybe giving up his civilian identity, and setting up Born Again so heavy in this with the Kingpin, all the stuff with him in prison, and eventually he's going to get out, he knows. A lot of stuff about how to ruin Matt Murdock, and Matt Murdock tells Karen his identity by the end, so all the pieces are sort of in place, and that story is all about destroying the superhero identity. So if they do Born Again in season 3, we'll sort of get the flip of this, which would be cool. I don't know if that'll be somewhat repetitive for people if we do just the exact reverse of what we did this season, the next one, but I'm excited about it, so we'll see.
Well, it certainly would be the next logical step, given first season into second season. I mean, you've got that line where about middle of the way through, he tells Foggy that Daredevil and Matt Murdock are the same person, and they kind of aren't by the end. Or at least he's having to kind of choose one identity over the other. So he thinks that they're blended in the same in the first season. In the second season, he's getting away from that. So then third season, he has chosen one. What happens? If he has actually, because the fact that at the end, and this might be some of people's reservations, we'll talk about the ending, but at the end, that's still sort of up in the air, right? Because he's gone from 10 minutes earlier telling Elektra he's giving up his personal identity completely, let's run away together, and then she dies, and he has a conversation with Stick, and now it's, okay, I guess I'll go tell Karen who I am, and he seems to have turned completely around on that.
Well, I'm not sure if that means he completely turned around. We're going to have to see how they handle it going into Season 3. Like, he could have potentially decided to give up being Matt Murdock completely and just told Karen because he cares about her and he wants to tell her why he can't be a part of her life. I mean,
that's a good point.
Know the context of that scene at this point. We'll see.
I would be really surprised if that's exactly where they go with it, but that could be it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure, yeah. Rasco!
Okay, so overall, I really, really, really like this season. In comparison to the first season, I think that the first season is a little bit different, where the first season's a very big, cohesive piece, like first episode to last episode. This season's a little bit different, and a lot of people have kind of said, I've heard some people say that it feels kind of like the ending is kind of like muddled together, and I don't know if I agree with that, because I think this season was a lot more segmented. There was kind of like small segments that where it was kind of like small arcs within the season, it felt like. So like I felt like from episode 1 to 4 was some of the best, I guess, television. It's technically not TV because it's on Netflix, but it was some of the best television I had watched in a long time. It was awesome. Just from episodes 1 to 4, I think it was. That was my favorite of the segments of the story, at least how I kind of perceived it. It felt a little bit different from season 1 in that way. It doesn't feel as cohesive as like a piece. But what I liked about season 1, I still love about the season, and that's like the supporting characters. Like, I really, really love the actor who plays Foggy Nelson. I've heard some people say that they don't like him, but he's actually one of my favorite parts of this show. And Karen is awesome, and I really like where she is by the end of the season. I thought that they would kind of sit on their hands a little bit with this and like kind of make her just kind of maybe like, I didn't want her to fall into kind of like a superfluous character type of situation with like Laurel Lance or anything like that. And I'm glad that she's not. To me at least, Karen, like, I feel like they have a direction with her, and they know where she's gonna. They know they definitely are going somewhere with her, and it's gonna be really interesting to see that. And Foggy Nelson at the end of this episode looks like he may be the branching point between Jessica Jones and Daredevil, and that's really cool. And I'm interested to see if he shows up in Jessica Jones season 2, and I would love to see that because I really like that actor. So I think that by the ending of this season, it doesn't have as definitive as like a kind of like climax point as the first season did, where the first season feels like it's ramping up the entire time. This season's kind of more of like a roller coaster of like the stakes get really high, and then it's like, oh, we solved this issue, and now they kind of are like back down, but then like something else comes up, and it's a little bit different. It's more arcy than the first season, I would say. So that's not a bad thing. It's just a difference between them, and maybe you can find that inconsistent, but I really liked it.
I found myself wondering if that might not be, and I had the same thing you did, Rasco, somewhat jarring for people that aren't familiar with comics, because it is very much structured like monthly comics often are, where I saw it as being a kind of a writer's run in 3 arcs, and in 3 like 4 or 5 issue arcs, where, like, you know, if I were gonna go in and name the arcs based on what we had in the show, the first section is either I call either The Punisher or Bang. Just call that whole section the episode title for the first episode, and then the second section of 4 episodes is The Trial of the Punisher, and then your last section is Black Sky. And I thought that was they did a good job of giving you the clear tonal shift at the beginning of the season, so that you knew that what you were looking at was something that felt a lot more like a comic book than first season. And don't get me wrong, aesthetically, visually and tonally, it's a very stylized street level comic book looking kind of thing. But the thing that critics keep being freaked out about positively is it's not a good comic book show, it's a good show. And I think it still is that, but I think that they are introducing some of those comic book elements, especially structurally, much more so than we had initially in that first season. Right away, it just feels more like I'm looking at a monthly comic, which is weird because at the same time as it feels almost Bendis decompressed in places, although it's not that slow as he is some of the time, it at the same time almost, I think, watches better in multiple sittings as opposed to one long sitting, because I just watched it all together and didn't think it worked quite as well as watching the first season, binging it, which doesn't make any sense in my brain because the problem with Bendis decompression is always you kind of lose yourself month to month. There's not enough story being told in a single issue. But when you put them all together, you go, oh, okay, now I get what he's doing, and it's paced really well. It's just difficult to look at month to month. So those two things seem to be completely in conflict in my brain. But that was the experience that I had with it. My favorite thing about the season is easily Karen Page. I identified with her a lot throughout this. I thought that the clear breakdown of what each of our three mainstays, what their motivations are in comparison to each other, was interesting and made sense, and again was clear. With Karen, in comparison to Foggy and Matt, it's that she's still trying to find herself, and she's searching for truth, but she also wants justice, and she can't merge those things. And I think with all three of those characters, there are two things they both want, and they can't reconcile them. They're trying to find a balance between those two things. And the idea of having her become a journalist on accident in the interim, by kind of the that's kind of the big setup for her character arc by the third act. I thought that was an inspired choice. And side note, I was impressed that Ben Urich's boss stepping in and standing in for Ben Urich was awesome, because he was as interesting and layered and felt as real to me, and I was invested in him as much as I was Ben Urich. Dan and I, in the previous spoiler cast for Daredevil, I think both agreed that Ben Urich was great, and killing him off where they did was logical, and it was character driven, but no, you killed off this great character. What are you doing? What is the show without that guy? And they answered it in incredible rare form for this kind of thing. I figured that would be a void you couldn't fill, and they filled it. It was fantastic. Yeah. Worst thing, I'm gonna say, I'm still on the fence about the ending as well. I think that probably is kind of my worst thing, though. Even beyond the potential 180 of, oh, my girlfriend died, so I'm going to go back to my other girlfriend, and it maybe being a kind of a rebound thing, Dan's right. We need more of it before we can really judge that. But I still have issues with it because I felt like his talking about running off with Elektra really sort of came out of nowhere. And I don't know that we brought him down to his, and Dan argued with me on this if you want to, I don't know if we brought him down to his, lowest point enough for me to buy that, because we've been yo-yoing this around. Of course, this is a very, very unstable and not very healthy relationship between these two, and he goes throughout the season from not wanting her around to working with her to her trying to kill him to it just jumps all over the place, and not in a bad way. I mean, that all makes sense up until you get to the end, but she's burned him too much. She's made it obvious that he's not going to change her in killing. He might be able to over time change her so that she doesn't feel like she's just a weapon and that she's tied to that nature, but to go as far as to say if we make it out of this and he was serious about it, let's run off together, and I don't and you understand me more than anybody else. I thought that was a little bit rushed and a little bit too typical television. I didn't quite buy it. that was my worst thing. And the other thing is there are places here and there, and they jump out more because this season, just like first season, is mostly really well written. And I'll give some examples here in a minute. But there are some places here and there where lines of dialogue are not nearly as smart as they seem to be. And because this show is so smart, I don't notice it right away. And then I start thinking, like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. And it's a credit to this show that they blindside me like that. And then I go, wait a minute, no, I don't know about that. So I'll talk about some of those here in a minute. But anyway, Dan, do you want to answer me at all about that ending thing, or should we move on to some other topics?
Let's move on to something else.
Okay then. Well, let's talk about the Punisher. I was so impressed with how completely sympathetic that character was, and like if you don't like the Punisher or don't think that the Punisher should ever be with superheroes, I think this is a wonderful answer to all of that. I'm not saying I like the Punisher in that I condone things he does, but I completely buy that he gets to that place, and his motivations for doing what he does, and he's a very complex, fascinating character. And he's kind of the anti-Batman in that you buy he can do things because he's the Punisher. And that he's that driven, and he never rests, and I love that. I also, side note, really liked that the skull came from a place, and that he wasn't just, oh, that looks really edgy. Like that's actually built in, and there's a reason he uses the skull. I thought that was really cool. What was you guys' take? That was a good sentence on the Punisher.
I really liked the way they introduced the Punisher and used him throughout the show. Like you were saying, he's kind of like Batman, but the character I was reminded of, and I'm sure they're not like adapting Rick Remender's run where they turn him into the literal like Frankencastle thing, but he reminded me a lot of the Frankenstein's monster when he first shows up. He's like this unstoppable force that's just killing people, anything that's in his way, and he comes off as this like really like crazy and terrible person, but once you get to sit down and talk with the guy, he's really tortured, and like he's got a lot of interesting motivations, and you can sympathize with him to some degree, but you don't condone what he's doing. I was reminded a lot of the Mary Shelley Frankenstein's monster from the novel specifically, not like the Boris Karloff version. I don't know. I thought the take on the character was really interesting. I'm sure that's been done in Punisher comics like that before. I'm just not a huge Punisher person and haven't read a ton of comics where he's the main character. But it was very cool.
Yeah, the only Punisher thing that I'm really familiar with is Jason Aaron's Punisher Max, which this either draws from some of the same stuff that Aaron was drawing from, but some of his interaction with the Kingpin reminded me a little bit of stuff that was done in that arc. What did you think of Punisher, Rasco?
Okay, I was in love with Punisher in this show. There was a couple things that I was really... So I have not read any Punisher comics, but I have seen the Punisher movie, I think it was 2004 is when it came out, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, the Thomas Jane one.
So there were certain things in that movie that I really liked, and I think that is actually a decent movie. I like that movie more than most people do. And
I think it is too. Yeah, I had to do a rewind on it before I understood what there was to like about it, because I hated it the first time I saw it. But yeah,
so it's a movie that I've come to really appreciate the more I've seen it, and so there was a couple things that I was really hoping they would capitalize on in this show with their Punisher that worked in that movie that I thought I would love to see done a little bit better. And one of the things was, like, I just felt like this Punisher, he made so much sense by the end where he was. Like, it felt as if, for him, I understood why this was the next step for him, actually becoming, like, the Punisher by the end of this series, by the end of the season. Part of it is that, in the end, the system didn't work. And, like, that's the whole thing with, like, Matt in the beginning, is he's like, I don't get to make the decision, you don't get to make the decision, we agree, like, we let law say what is right and wrong, or what we can and can't do, not necessarily what's right and wrong, but what we can and can't do. And he's like, that's how we decide who lives and who dies, like, we don't get to decide that individually. And the Punisher's like, okay, and, like, that is Matt's ideology, but if you lose faith in that system, or if the system itself is corrupt, which by the end of the show we learned that the DA had her hands were dirty, and it was not this just incident, this random incident. Like, there were people involved with this, and there were people that tried to cover up things, and the truth was not out there. And so in the ending, the system failed, and
Also,
it made the
one
Punisher feel a
person-
lot more sympathetic.
And also, the one person who had anything nice to say about him was part of it.
Yeah. So, I just think that by the end, the Punisher, it worked. Everything with the Punisher in this worked for me. I think casting was spot on, and I'm so excited. Like, I really, really want to see a Punisher Netflix series, because the Punisher was easily like the highlight addition to this series, for me at least.
Yeah, I found myself, I think, caring less about the ninja stuff because I was so invested in the Punisher stuff. And
And it feels like, because the Punisher stuff is kind of very separate from that. It's a very separated story that really doesn't cross over till the ending, and so it does feel very separate. And so I could see people latching on to one, but not necessarily the other.
well, I also think one was given a little bit more attention than the other in the storytelling. The ninja stuff with the Black Sky and everything struck me as pretty typical in comparison. And like a lot of that, it was pretty clear where it was going, and like character-wise, I just wasn't as engaged. There's some interesting things with Elektra here and there, but and overall, I think I like that take on her. Although I'm still a little bit back and forth on that too. But yeah, I was much more invested in the Punisher stuff. At the same time, I don't think you want to stretch that to 13 episodes. Like, I think they got as much mileage out of that relationship as they could, because after a while, it's just going to be Daredevil and the Punisher are working together, and then they're at it, and then they're at each other's throats, and then they're working together, and then they're at each other's throats some more. So you needed something. I don't want to say to pad it out, but I think that the way that those subplots converge was intelligently handled, because the ninja stuff, even though I think that it's maybe a little bit convenient that those two things happen at the same time, the ninja stuff comes in and becomes the device for Punisher, or for Daredevil having to prioritize between his two lives. So you need something else. It can't just be the Punisher. And I also thought that Nelson and Murdoch having to it being Daredevil's Matt's idea for them to for them to handle his trial, and then for him to run off and deal with some other thing and leave Foggy holding the bag. I thought all of that was really well juggled. The Punisher's our big threat at the beginning, and now suddenly we're having to defend him. But then this other thing pops up, and that's the big crux for the internal conflict. I liked all that a lot, and that was really good, and really good courtroom drama, like really believable courtroom drama.
I think that the whole Elektra side and like everything with the hand, it works better. It works for me in a way that I think it doesn't work for a lot of people. And that I will agree that maybe we don't know enough about the hand yet to be spending as much time talking about that kind of stuff when we don't know, there's still so much we don't know about that whole thing. So. But what does work for me is we see Matt Murdock clearly have two sides of, he has two lives, essentially, and he's kind of, one is completely taking over the other, and that he can't be Matt Murdock the lawyer, because he's failing in almost every way. He's being a terrible friend, and he's not being good in his relationship with Karen, and he's leaving Foggy, but he's leaving Foggy out to dry, and it's just bad. Everything is being put on Foggy's shoulders, and it sucks for him. And he's failing in his life, and it's clearly affecting.
I think he remains pretty sympathetic throughout that for the most part, and actually sometimes at a little bit of the detriment of the other two characters, who they of course walk a line between keeping them annoyed but sympathetic and getting melodramatic, and they both straddle that fence a little bit. There are some places where it starts to straddle a little bit into CW land, but I don't think it ever quite jumps the fence. But I think that he remains very sympathetic throughout the whole thing, because he keeps telling Elektra, I'm not going to let you manipulate me and mold me the way you keep trying to mold me, and that is precisely what she's doing. I also think that once we find out that Stick raised her and it becomes a sibling thing as much as it's a lover thing, it gets really interesting because she was raised to manipulate that way and to pretend to be someone else with the high society stuff. But then he also, even though Matt was a little bit older, or maybe they were the same age, I'm not sure. He also molded Matt to be the same way, and you see some of the manipulation tactics that Elektra uses on Matt in the way he deals with his relationships also. And one of the reasons I think that he resists her so much is because he sees too much of himself in her.
Yeah.
And that relationship is absolutely fascinating. So when I say I have reservations about Elektra, it's more about just the hand stuff in general. Because I'm with you, we don't know enough, and they just seem like kind of generic ninjas. There's not enough going on there yet. Also, another negative I'll throw out real quick is and some folks will disagree with me. The actress playing Elektra is hit and miss for me. I think she's overall pretty good. She's a good casting choice in that she looks the part. She actually seems to be Greek, and all that's really cool. And I like it. What's that now?
She's French, and she speaks French in the show. I think they changed Elektra to be French in the show because of that.
She's straight up French now? Okay.
Yeah.
I wondered about the whole she's speaking French thing. Maybe so. But anyway.
I can't remember if they say which country her adopted father is from, because he's a ambassador, like he's in the comics. It's her real father in the comics, but she's adopted in this. I can't remember if they say he's Greek or not, but she has a French accent and speaks French in the show, yeah.
But she's... my deal with that actress is there are a lot of places where her line delivery seems a little bit off, and I don't think it's just an accent thing. Like sometimes, because you could chalk it up to that, but there are a number of places where she'll say a line of dialogue and she just doesn't sound like it's what was in the script. Because I tend to kind of see script when I'm listening to characters to actors delivering dialogue, and I feel like this material is bolstering her acting a lot and acting alongside of what's his face playing Matt Murdock. She's
Charlie Cox.
That's elevating her a lot, but I don't know that she's great yet.
I liked her a lot. I thought she struck me a lot as a pretty good take on what Frank Miller was doing with her in the comics. She's a little bit understated and manipulative and stuff like that. I enjoyed that aspect of her character. I was really excited just seeing some of the iconic panels and the ways that the characters introduced in Frank Miller's run seen on the screen for the first time. Like, a lot of that stuff made me enjoy it a lot. Like, when she shows up in his apartment, she says, "Hello, Matthew." Like, that's a straight-up thing from one of the Frank Miller issues. And one of the things I wanted to touch on that you guys were talking about...
Oh, yeah, that's her Face It Tiger, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I thought all that kind of stuff was really cool. And one of the things that you guys mentioned about structure earlier that I thought was really interesting, that's related to the way that I think Frank Miller was doing these comics. The first season is largely based on Man Without Fear, which is a 5-issue cohesive story, and this is very much based on the early parts of Frank Miller's run where we introduce the Hand, and there's like a 2-issue arc where the Punisher shows up, and that's the crux of the early part of the season, takes from that stuff. So there's a reason why it feels more episodic just by the nature of the material they're adapting, I suppose. Maybe they could have made it into a cohesive story and they were adapting it, but I actually enjoyed the structure of it, how it was so much.
I liked it too.
Plots weaving in and out of each other like the comics did. It was cool.
Yeah, I'm in no way dogging it for that, Dan. I thought that was
good. I'm just saying that was my take on what you guys were saying. I think you made a good point.
I also like the way it's bookended with the three of them having this cohesive but obviously flawed triad that breaks apart by the end, and you have kind of You have kind of bookended scenes with, well, I say the beginning, after the teaser, where you've got Matt and Foggy walking down the sidewalk and talking about how, Karen really likes it when all three of them are together and all of that. And as it goes along and he notices that Matt's bleeding from the neck and all of that, like, it starts to kind of spiral out of control a little bit, where the writing is the wall immediately, that even though they all seem to be getting along and they're kind of a family now, if he keeps being Daredevil, there's no way that they can hold that together. And there's a really telling line somewhere in the first couple episodes where he says that Karen seems to hope that or seems to be acting like they'll be doing this forever. And Foggy has this great look on his face when he says that, where it's like, well, isn't that what you want? Is that not what you want? And it gets really sad after that. I want to talk about the relationship a little bit, the romance, because I love it, and then I think it might be rushed. They're not being together anymore. Might be a little bit rushed. I'm not sure, but it is one of the most romantic relationships I've seen in a long time. Those two have so much chemistry together. That first kiss is it's tender and it's lovely and just everything about it. And like, they nail. I'm not sure who wrote that particular episode, but whoever wrote that was obviously drawing from personal experience, because they nail what a first date is like when two people are really connecting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not to get too personal, but it reminded me a little bit of my first date with my wife, and I just, like, they nailed that. It seemed so real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the relationship too, but one of the things that you said before that I wanted to touch on a little bit, and made me think of one of the points that I was going to talk about, because I just couldn't recall why I sort of liked the Elektra thing at the end of the season that you were talking about earlier. I think that they set up that Matt isn't necessarily satisfied with the whole being a lawyer thing, since, like, the beginning of the season in Daredevil is sort of being that Daredevil life thing is what he'd primarily rather be doing, and a woman in a family of people that fits into that life is much more appealing to him than possibly just being with Foggy and Karen. I think the choice is between living in the world of Stick and Elektra versus Karen and Foggy, and I think that throughout the whole season he's struggling with it, but you can see, like, the telltale signs subtly that he'd rather be living in the world of the ninjas and fighting people, and because that's the life that was always forbidden to him as a kid. His dad was always like, hit the books, Matty. Don't go and fight. It's the forbidden fruit. So I kind of bought that thing at the end with him turning and running away with Elektra, because I don't know, that's kind of what he's been longing for his whole life, is going out and fighting the good fight and things like that.
No, I get that, but the issue is that he can't control her and keeps trying to, and that's where I'm hung up on it a little bit. Where it's like, she's gonna keep killing people.
Says that he's too noble and a little bit too naive, and that's one of the things I think is endearing with the character, is that he thinks he can redeem Elektra even if it's impossible. Like that's so Matt Murdock. That's what I liked about it.
I get that, but I'm interested to see you watch it a second time and see if you still buy it. Because just in the moment, I didn't quite buy it.
Okay.
But that's all I'm saying. Just I get that about that character, but it's just too soon after she just killed a guy in his apartment and he had this really shattering disillusionment. I just have a hard time buying that he's that naive.
Yeah, maybe so.
I think by the end he makes the wrong choice, and I think
and that is the point. You're absolutely right about that.
He chooses Elektra, and it was kind of similar to like how I imagine, almost like how it was almost like being Daredevil was a drug for Matt. Like that was part of him, and it was really kind of when you see Foggy and noticing like wounds on Matt's body, and it's like, oh god, like this guy's killing himself every night. He's going out there and he's getting beat up and he's bleeding and he's injured and it's affecting his life, and it's clear to everyone around him but Matt, and then in the end he makes the wrong choice, and it felt very much like an addiction for Matt. Like this was almost like he couldn't live without it, and it was really, and that's what makes the ending with Karen kind of work for me, because I think that maybe by the end Matt knows that he just was like, I'm an idiot. I've just ruined everything the past couple of months, and it's kind of a really depressing place to leave Matt. But I really like it because now you have this, like, at least how I see it is like Matt just made a string of bad choices over the course of this season, and now he just like has to look at that and he's like, wow, I can't believe I did that. And now he's in the place that everybody else has been the entire season, being like, Matt, like, you're destroying yourself right now, and everything else in your life is suffering because of it.
Yeah, Matt Murdock's a bit of a masochist, and that's one of the things I've always found to be interesting with the character too, is that he's always willing to shoulder the like heavy burden even if he can't carry it, and it's clear to everyone else besides him.
Yeah, and I thought they made it really clear that, I thought it was cool that Karen obviously thinks it's some sort of addiction. I mean, part of that is because Foggy has told her he has a drinking problem, which is great, because right at the beginning in that sidewalk conversation I was talking about, Matt's like, that's a horrible thing to tell her. He's like, well, it's better than you run across rooftops and beat up bad guys. What am I supposed to say? But I liked it when she tells him that it's over between them. She's like, I don't know if it's alcohol or if it's a fight club. Like, everything she thinks of is an addiction, and so she's picking up on that. I like it when she says, when he's like, well, I am blind, and she's like, yeah, but I'm not an idiot. Clearly, not just clearly something is going on, but it's taking over your personal life. You're not able to do anything but do whatever it is you're doing that's getting you all these cuts and bruises. I also like, somewhat related to that, and Dan, I thought this was one of the most classic Matt Murdock lines in the whole season, was when he tells, when Elektra asks him what women say about his cuts and bruises when he brings them back to his apartment, and he says they're having too good of a time to notice or to say anything, and I was like, that's so Matt Murdock. I love that.
Yeah, and I love that what you pointed out about Karen, because I picked up on that too, and that's incredibly good character-driven foreshadowing if they go with her background from Born Again, where she used to be a heroin addict, and then the Kingpin introduces that to her again, and that's how he gets Matt Murdock's identity out of her. Because clearly they've been foreshadowing throughout the first two seasons that there's something sketchy going on in her past we don't know about. It seems like it's more of a grand sort of thing than just simple drug addiction. It seems like there's something going on with her parents too. But I wouldn't be surprised if drugs are somehow involved. It's going to be interesting to see, but I think that's foreshadowing. I think they have plans.
I didn't think about that because she is so drawn and seems like such a real character, and yet we don't know a lot about her background. When I said one of my favorite thing about the season is Karen Page, part of that is because we explored her dark side. There is a gripping conversation with Matt when she says that maybe what the Punisher is doing is necessary, and he shuts the whole thing down and sends her away, and that's kind of their first big lovers spat, I guess. I really liked that relationship. I really liked that conversation, and liked her, constantly questioning her own morality, and she's kind of all over the place. She can't, like I said, compared to the other two, like I'll break this down real quick. Foggy knows exactly who he is and what he wants, and his friend, who he thought he understood, is getting in the way, and that's his big problem and his big conflict. And then Matt has the two worlds he wants to live in, and he can't live in both of them. And then Karen is still trying to find herself, and I think kind of does by the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that she's going to sort of become the Ben Urich of this show. I think that's a fantastic place for her. It's really cool. And I sort of like how you talked about exploring her dark side. I thought it was really interesting that she starts out sort of sympathizing with Frank, and obviously Matt's on the polar opposite of that spectrum of the argument, and they sort of arrive at each other's conclusions almost by the end. Well, Karen goes all the way. She kind of sees that what the Punisher does is a little too much for her, and she can't condone those sorts of things, where Matt goes right up against the line by the end, and maybe thinks maybe that the Punisher has something to say that that he should go over that line, but he skirts right across it. I thought it was interesting that they sort of flipped by the end of the season.
You could even make the argument, and this is maybe going too far. You could even make the argument that in particular instances, we've got Daredevil to a point where he will condone what Punisher does, given that he runs across that rooftop with a whole bunch of ninjas, and Punisher's picking off the ninjas, and then he doesn't go after the fight. He looks over, they make eye contact, and he might as well say, "Thanks a lot for picking off those ninjas, Punisher. I sure appreciated that." And of course, he also, but that's not inconsistent necessarily, because Punisher has gotten him to a point where he said, maybe this one instance, you're right, as far as killing whoever killed his parents. And Punisher says, "Well, no, you're still not there with me, because if you go over that line, you're never coming back." And that's a thing that I always kind of question and go back and forth on. Is like, is it really true that if, say, somebody like Daredevil killed one person, that he wouldn't be able to keep himself from killing after that? I don't know. I mean, you'd have to see him do it and see what happens. But but after he got him that far, the picking off ninjas on the rooftop thing seemed like something that maybe he would do.
I think,
and I forget what they said, because it's been a while since I watched the episodes. Is it specifically just Nobu that's immortal, or are all the hand ninjas immortal?
It seems to be just Nobu. I mean, he's the only one that comes back.
Okay, because I couldn't remember how they quantified that, because it's been a while since I watched it. So.
Yeah. I mean, we have, he's got that line, like, "There's no such thing," and I guess he's just talking about for him. Like I guess it's possible that some of the other ninjas come back, and maybe the way that we have so many ninjas at the end is that all the other ninjas from earlier just like came back to, well, we didn't kill them all, so I guess not. But anyway, I don't know about that. Bringing up because let me say this while I'm thinking about it. Bringing up the immortality issue, I don't know how I feel about Elektra saying this is not the end, unless we find out later that whatever happened to Nobu that keeps him coming back to life, somehow or rather she's done also, but she's not with the hand. So I don't know how she would know that. That seems like a really strange line unless she knows she's coming back from the dead.
Yeah, maybe she was being more manipulative than we realized. Who knows?
If it turned out she was actually like playing the hand and stick against each other, I'll be really surprised if they actually make that work. But because if that were the case, she has to know she's the Black Sky, right? And she is the best actress in the universe if she pulled that off.
Yeah, that's true.
That's all I'm saying. The Black Sky thing, I don't know if this is comic book, because it's been so long since I've read Frank Miller. But the Black Sky thing is just like the treasure thing in the Elektra movie, but handled a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she's actually like the MacGuffin of her own story. Like Superman and Man of Steel.
That's right, yeah.
I saw a question a little bit ago in the chat.
Yeah, let's answer some questions and comments. We've already we've kind of generally gone through a lot of this, and we got about 20 minutes left, so yeah, let's do that.
So I don't have the exact comment, but what they asked was asking where do we think they'll go next season, and especially with characters like Kingpin. And I have something about Kingpin that I'm not sure if it was obvious to everyone, or if this is a thing that maybe only I picked up on. But I think that by the end of the season, I think Kingpin knows who Matt is. I think that Kingpin knows that Matt is Daredevil. And it comes from the scene where Matt goes to visit Kingpin in prison. And when Kingpin just picks up Matt and slams him down on the table, Matt it was just a really obscure, like, what the heck kind of thing, where, like, if you blink, you miss it. Matt, like, his reaction to getting slammed is he comes up and then punches Kingpin once in the face, and then the Kingpin slams him down again and doesn't even, like, stop to think about the fact that a blind guy just went and punched him right in the face. And so then later on, you've seen Kingpin eating, like, while he has his guards at his cell door, he's eating his, like, steak, and he's sitting there, and it's like a 30-second long scene of just the Kingpin sitting there eating steak, and then at the end, Kingpin just goes and he touches his lip, and he has like this like look on his face, like, wait a second, and I think that Kingpin knows just based off that punch to the face, because he's been punched by Daredevil in the face before. I think that he knows that Matt is Daredevil now.
Yeah, but there's more evidence to it in that very scene, and I didn't think of this, Rasco, but we never pay off the fact that he asks for Matt Murdock's files. Like, that's what he does right then. So
Oh
like
yeah.
you're picking up on this look, but the thing right after the, because I would think that you maybe were picking up on things that weren't there, except for the fact that right after that look he goes, now it's Austin Powers. Right after that look he says, "Hey, go get those files on Matt Murdock."
Yeah, you know what's so weird about that is like I guess I was so enthralled with that, just him
You
sitting
didn't
there
even
eating
notice
his
the main
steak,
piece of evidence for
and
your
then
own
I just
argument.
completely missed that part because I'm like, yeah, that was like that's all I needed. If they had just taken out, they didn't even need that line of dialogue, honestly. That was enough, and I was like, wow, that was okay.
Well, apparently they did need that line of dialogue because that completely blindsided. I mean, not blindsided. Like I didn't even notice it, and so I'm glad you said something because I think you're probably onto something, and it'll be because the thing is, Kingpin is obviously a master manipulator and keeps everything close to his chest, so it would be dumb if they foreshadowed it any harder than that, right? Like he knows a thing, he's able to keep it from everybody. He's got such a great poker face. One of the things I love about the Kingpin too is that he always has this look of like pain and sadness. Like he's not Lex Luthor. He doesn't have like this brick face. It's always like it's like he's always in emotional turmoil, and that's almost a better poker face.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love that about him. I don't know why I had this. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. The first time I watched this, my jaw actually dropped when he showed up. I was so excited to see him again. And then that he got a couple of episodes was pretty exciting. I mean, obviously, I want a whole nother season with that guy because he's so interesting. But it was really cool that we immediately go back to his perspective, that when you look at this as an ongoing narrative, he is still one of our central characters, and we're just checking in with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they introduce him, and then you pretty much the show almost like shifts. Again, kind of like multiple times the show shifts focus, and that's another time where it shifts focus is when the Kingpin is introduced.
One thing I found myself wondering, and this isn't a criticism depending on what Kingpin does next season, is his main motivation when he's in prison is to get out, and he talks about that. And yet he, with the power that he accumulates in prison, he becomes the prison's Kingpin, he gets Punisher out. And I don't know why he didn't just get himself out. Because if he can do that, you can't tell me that he can't get himself out.
Is it necessarily that he wants, like, what does the Kingpin, I guess it's what does the Kingpin want after he's out? Does he want to have to live his life as, like, an escaped convict? Like, or like, what, like, I guess, I don't know.
Oh, you're right, he might manipulate things so that he gets out legally.
Yeah, I think that was his thing, is that he doesn't want to get out by breaking, like, he doesn't want to, like, escape prison because he doesn't want to live his life as a fugitive.
Yeah.
He wants to get out legally so that he can, we don't know, I guess we don't know yet what his plan is.
So that he can start his empire again. Well, any way you slice it, he's going to stay in New York because Matt got very much under his skin when he made that point. So whatever it is, he wants to reset up some sort of empire in New York and get that all started up again. So I mean, like, I think that much is clear. How exactly he would go about it is another story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, like, if we get the full Kingpin transformation at some point once Vanessa dies and he goes full cold-hearted killer in the next season. Because that still has to happen for us to get, the Kingpin that we know, the comic book villain Kingpin at some point. Vanessa's going to die, so.
See, in my mind, he kind of is that. Like, I totally agree with you, Dan, but at the same time, like, I don't know how that guy ever gets more scary than the car door from.
No, I agree with you, he's already scary. I just think, like, to get him into a character place where he's ruthlessly going to destroy every aspect of Matt Murdock's life. I mean, maybe at this point we don't need that to happen, but I kind of want to see it happen. Like, him completely unhinged.
Yeah, where he's totally unhinged, but I feel like we have a guy that could totally be two-faced and go back and forth, where he's able to be like nuanced and pretend to be like not emotionally unhinged, and then when he's dealing with Matt Murdock, he just loses it every time. Like,
right, I'm just saying that, like, this is a guy at this point that has something to lose, and
yes.
Just imagine the guy this scary without anything to lose,
She has to die next season, right? Like, that has to happen.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, for the purposes of the story.
Yeah, I'd be real surprised if she didn't. Is all I'm saying. I'd also be surprised if they didn't kill off some other main character because we didn't lose anybody this season, and Elektra doesn't count because when Elektra dies, she doesn't die. We didn't. Besides that, we didn't really lose anybody, and I also think killing off Karen Page is a very likely thing to happen.
Well, if they introduce Bullseye next season, I think it's probably an inevitability because he's the one that kills Karen Page and Kevin Smith's run in the comics.
Especially because we didn't use him to kill Elektra, and they're going to want to have some sort of iconic Bullseye kill when they bring in Bullseye. I mean, who knows if that's next season or not? I don't know if they've come right out and said that, but I saw some people in the comments say, "Yeah, I didn't like the Elektra death because that's supposed to be Bullseye, and I just wanted to see that." Handled on screen again, and maybe better than it was in the movie. And I see why people are saying that. For the sake of this, it just depends on what they do with her after this. I mean, like it would be a little bit weird to do an initial Elektra story and not kill her off. So.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me too much. I was honestly surprised that they killed her and didn't save that sort of thing for the next season or whatever. But they're going with the whole Elektra lives again thing. It'll be interesting to see how much they adapt from that comic because that comic is crazy. I don't know if you guys ever read that. But
I haven't read it in forever. I feel so weird reviewing this stuff because I need to sit down and go back and reread Miller because it's been about 6 or 7 years since I've done that. And I'm just really rusty on all that stuff. So I have read that. I just don't remember much about it.
Or you can watch my issue-by-issue reviews when I get those out, because I have the first one almost done. So.
But I feel like I could probably read them faster.
That's true.
Oh, that was that mean? I don't know if that was mean. Hey, can I throw out a really nitpicky criticism? And I may do a few of these because I have a couple of amusing ones. The entire season, there might be an exception or two that I'm not thinking of, but the entire season, everyone, including Daredevil himself, refers to himself as the Devil of Hell's Kitchen. And then right at the end, he does the I'm Batman thing and says, I'm Daredevil. And I was like, you've never called yourself that!
I thought he called himself Daredevil at the end of the first season of Daredevil.
He might have, but then throughout the whole season, he never calls himself that. I just thought it was weird that, like, that like most of the time they don't use that term, but now he's using it. Okay.
I heard it once. I thought somebody called him Daredevil.
Maybe so. I mean, I saw it a lot because I was watching it with subtitles to make sure I saw all the dialogue. And every time he says something in the subtitles, like Daredevil, and he says things. But so I saw it a lot. But yeah, anyway, it just like those two together have been calling him the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, and that just seemed like a strange thing to me.
Can I just say really quick? I love the way this show looks.
Yes.
The opening.
You can't say that.
The opening shot of this show was so atmospheric, and all it was just like a 360 of rooftops, and it just like I felt so sucked in by like the first shot. Like I love the way this show looks. I love how gritty it looks, and I love how it almost looks like somebody just could have made this, and you could have like seen it on like a really like it just seems like someone could have like made this on their own, like, and that's a good thing. Like it feels really gritty. It feels like
you wanted to feel like that. Also, I meant to mention this earlier. The shot at the end of that scene is it sets up everything Dan was talking about earlier with regards to Daredevil, Matt loving being Daredevil. I love that we end that teaser with a big giant smile on his face. That establishes the entire character arc.
Yeah. Can we talk about some cool visual stuff that just made me giddy because I thought that stuff was really fun?
Oh, sure, Dan.
I loved the fact that Daredevil finally got his wired billy club that he can swing around on with. That is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's so awesome.
Agreed.
Yeah, when he's like, the possibilities are endless. I was just expecting him to be like, it slices, dices, and makes great julienne fries.
That's another thing, too, that I'm going to be interested to see if that character becomes Gladiator in the next season as a minor villain, because I feel like or maybe even like the way the Punisher was used in the early part of this season, be like the major villain for like an arc or something like that, because they've built that character up to a place where he's a minor supporting character, but I feel like he's sympathetic enough, and we know enough about him. He's been established that he could be a villain like that for 3-4 episodes and be interesting.
Yeah, or at least be a minor villain that gets taken out pretty quick. And they had that, or they might just be doing a nod to it because he made his own uniform shirt.
They're doing more than nods. Like he's like holding the blades that the Gladiator has on his hands in the comics. They're going to turn him into the Gladiator at some point, and he's used in Miller's run for some cool stories, and Bendis uses him too.
Yeah, well, and also it would make sense. Like, there's an escalation, right? Because his relationship with Daredevil is a little bit rocky. Like, he doesn't always like how much Daredevil's pushing him to get things done quickly. And like I say, it's sort of rocky. So like they have a deal they've made between them, and if Daredevil goes too far in breaking that deal, he's gonna let loose on him.
Yeah, and Gladiator is interesting because he's sort of similar to the Kingpin in that he's this kind of like socially awkward character that the only thing that keeps him going is the love of his life, and what happens in the comics is that person dies, and Daredevil, it's sort of like the death of Captain Stacy thing where Gwen Stacy blames Spider-Man for indirectly being responsible for that, and then that drives the Gladiator to be like a major supervillain of Daredevil. So if we introduce that character in the next season, his girlfriend, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, if that's the case, they're straight up setting that up because they keep talking about her, and Daredevil's supposed to protect them, and when he doesn't,
it's gonna go down.
I'm feeling Bullseye shows up, and he kills the one character that will completely derail everybody. He kills the Kingpin, he kills Vanessa, he kills the Gladiator's girlfriend, he kills Karen Page, he kills everybody. That's what's gonna
Bullseye shows up, and his whole motif is he never misses, but he only shoots at women that main characters are dating it or married to at the time. Rasco, give us a few questions. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes left, and we will use that remainder to talk to you folks and answer a few questions and comments. Go ahead, if you
Okay, can you guys actually hold on for 1 second? Let me find a question. Just talk about something.
Sure, no problem. Okay, well, let me give an example of one of those lines of dialogue that I thought was clunky and strange. And again, this will sound like a nitpick, but I'm just using this as an example because I noticed a few of these here and there. And there was a line where was it Daredevil? I think so. Who says, the thing? I can't remember if it was him or who it was. Somebody says, the thing about martyrs, the good ones end up dead. But don't you have to die to be a martyr? Like, isn't the dictionary definition of a martyr somebody who dies?
Well, if you don't die, you're a bad martyr, okay?
Oh, okay. Okay, Rasco.
2 and 2 is 4.
Yeah, so there was something like that I just questioned. Was like, I don't know if that's good writing. Some stuff like that.
Okay,
Go ahead, Rasco.
Here's one. Did you guys find... Oh, this is from Masked Sci-Fi Fan. Did you guys find the stereotypical portrayal of the Hand to be problematic or even racist?
I didn't think of it that way just because they're kind of straight off the comic book page. That can be a sticky wicket, I suppose.
I didn't see any problem with it at all.
I didn't really have a problem with them. It's just, as of now, we still don't know about them, so I can see how it may come across stereotypical. But I think it's more that we just, there's so much that they're still are hinting at, but they're not showing us everything, so we have kind of an incomplete picture of them.
I think when you do a season that hinges around something as grounded as a serial killer with, or arguably a serial killer with the Punisher, that you don't want to go too far in the mystical direction yet. And they're walking a fine line by bringing in the Hand this early and having anybody that can come back from the dead. In a season, I thought this was interesting that we're dealing with the ethics of killing people in a season where we introduced the idea of immortality. So it's possible to make yourself so that you can't die, but we're all worried about whether or not it's ever okay to kill people. Which I should throw out there that this is a major, ethical crux of superhero stuff all the time. We see it constantly in the CW shows and really every, TV show and a lot of movies too with superheroes. And it's because that's a major, element of superhero stuff, it gets kind of old after a while, and you have to make it new again. You have to keep finding a way to make it fresh, and the first step is to tell a good, solid, character-driven story that's believable enough with an internal logic. And so, you watch a thing like this, and then you go to Arrow, and you're like, I wish they would just come up with a different conflict with Arrow and not make it that anymore. Not to compare it to that too much, but I'm just saying that, like, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, yeah, this has gotten old, but not in this case. One of the things that I'm excited about with the ninjas, this is neither here nor there, is we're about to get a Tick live-action reboot. And Ben Edlund has said that he's going to make his Tick series finally an ongoing story, which we've never really seen before. Continuity here and there, but the first major Tick story is called A Million Zillion Ninjas, and it's a direct parody of Miller's Daredevil, and there's a character named Oedipus, who is supposed to be Trim, and it's a girl, but she's called Oedipus, and there's there's like all these ninjas, and they're making fun of this like constant influx of ninjas. And you get to the the last episode of this season, and you have that many ninjas on a roof, and I was like, oh my god, there's so many ninjas. That's unintentionally hilarious, or maybe even intentionally hilarious. And I'm excited because we have on screen done Miller's bazillion ninjas, and we are probably going to see that adapted now with the Tick, which is kind of exciting to me. It would be a big missed opportunity if he didn't go there after this.
I have another question here.
Yeah.
But, twist, it's from Steve Baxi.
Hi, Steve. Sorry you couldn't make the Spoilercast. Thanks for watching the Spoilercast.
So, he says, do you think the killing/no-killing theme really comes together by the end? I think it lacked a true climax. We never really have anyone make any decisions about it. They just chat. I can kind of see that with every character but Punisher. I think by the ending, we have a thing with Punisher where he changes by the end in a way that's kind of... Okay, so the Punisher's still holding on to his humanity throughout the whole season in certain ways. Like, there's that scene, I think, where Karen Page comes out to the car, and the Punisher's in his car, and he's listening... I forget what song it was, but he looks over at her, and he's like, I used to sing this with my family. He's like, can you imagine me singing this? And it was so funny. It was like my favorite line, and like it was like it may have been my favorite line.
And then she says the cassette collection came with the car.
But like he's holding on to his humanity, and I think by the end, the Punisher kind of becomes even more sympathetic in a way because he kind of gives up his humanity. He destroys his house. He's giving up everything that he used to be. And
which is what Daredevil's been talking about doing.
He's becoming like a force of nature almost, or like something elemental, kind of like what Batman's talking about in Batman Begins, where he's no longer a man. He's trying to elevate himself above that to where it's almost like, well, a man can't make that decision to kill or to not kill. That shouldn't be up to any random person on the street. But the Punisher, he's a force of nature, and that's at least in his mind, I think. That's how he sees himself by the end. So for Punisher, I can see what Steve means when he's talking about Matt, and maybe some of like in Matt and Karen, but and maybe even less with Karen, because I kind of feel like Karen has an answer by the end of the season to that question of killing or not killing. Maybe potentially we can speculate.
What is it though? I mean, I feel like she's still kind of in flux a little bit. I mean, she's decided what a hero is in her voiceover article about heroes, which I wasn't totally in love with, but so yeah, no, I see what he's saying, because I'm not sure where she stands on that. It's not an issue with Elektra, because she hasn't had a chance to test yet if she can even get over her nature of I was born to be a bomb that blows everything up, and then she dies. So like that's not a real big deal, because we're not done with her. But with Matt, obviously you want to kind of resolve your character arc. Yeah, I mean it's an issue. Maybe that's part of what I'm resisting with the ending too. What do you think, Dan?
I'm gonna have to watch it again. I think that may be an issue potentially, but I think the beauty of this show is that it's an ongoing thing that is telling a story of this character long form. I mean, I could see them maybe resolving that when we get to Bullseye and Matt struggling with whether or not to kill him after he kills Karen or something. I mean, we could still have that, the conclusion of that story keep going, and who knows, the Punisher might show up in the third season of Daredevil if he doesn't get his own show. I mean, there's a billion ways that we can continue this, and the story keeps going. I mean, for this season, judging it as a whole, as a cohesive piece and not attaching it to anything else, yeah, I suppose maybe it's an issue. But I'm going to have to watch it again. I'm not sure what I think about it yet, to be honest with you.
I think it's easy to expect it to have a clear, tied-up character arc because the first season had that, and I think that's what Steve's resisting. I keep thinking that it's just structured differently, and that the Punisher stuff is done, but everything else is still somewhat in, not everything, but some of everything else is still in limbo, and I really think that Matt's supposed to be at kind of a rock bottom place at the end, and so he just doesn't have those answers yet. If a third season doesn't, clear that up, then that's a big problem, but how could it not? I mean, I just feel like the balls are still in the air on that, the more I think about it.
I think so too.
Yeah. What was that, Rasco?
I said I have more questions. If you
okay, how about one more, and then we'll go ahead and call it a night.
Okay.
So make it awesome, Rasco.
Oh God.
I don't know if you.
No pressure.
If there's nothing else good. I saw one from somebody asking about what we'd want to see in a Punisher show. I don't know if that's an interesting question you guys like to answer, but.
Well, one thing I should mention is just because you made me think of this, Dan, is there is a setup sort of for Microchip.
Yeah.
I don't know what's on that disc or why exactly it said Micro on it, but that's clearly a setup for Microchip.
Yeah.
Who I kind of expected to be a character who would be established in this, in the season, and wasn't. But that's fine. Punisher doesn't need a supporting cast in a season that has this much stuff going on, I don't think.
And maybe Microchip gives a lot of the flavor to a Punisher show, maybe.
Well, and Punisher needs somebody to talk to. So obviously you have to have that guy or somebody that's that guy. But yeah, I wish Vince or somebody else that really likes Punisher was here, because I don't. The thing is, the Punisher stuff I really like, we've already kind of drawn from. I mean, like I like Punisher dealing with Kingpin and dealing with Bullseye. The
Bullseye thing. I mean, I'd obviously want to see Bullseye in. Well, I mean, then again, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to him being introduced in Punisher first, as long as he still becomes, the one of the two arch enemies of Daredevil alongside with Kingpin.
I think that'd be a great place to introduce him. I think that would be a bolster to get people to watch it.
Yeah,
I think it would be really smart if his opposition was somebody really popular that people had heard of that they hadn't gotten to see yet.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And I think just because they have the Punisher driving lots of vehicles in this, I want to see the Punisher van that he has in the 90s Spider-Man show.
Well, you can't tell me he's not gonna have a big van. He's got to have the van.
I don't know if that's from the comics. It probably is.
The Punisher has a van in the comics. It's not exactly that thing, I don't think. But did you guys notice that there is his introduction when we finally see his face in the scope is a nod to that Spider-Man cover?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. That was really cool.
They come right out and do that cover, and I was like, yes, I was hoping that's how they would introduce him. I immediately jumped on Facebook and was like, Steve, they did that cover! And Steve was like, oh, you're right, they did!
Did Vince get to watch this? I meant to ask you if he...
I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a while, so I'm not sure. I'll have to call him up and find out. I haven't seen Vince in a few weeks. But, yeah, something else that I hadn't thought of until today was, isn't it kind of interesting that the two big properties that Fox had that reverted back to Marvel were Punisher and Daredevil, and we put them both in a season together?
I thought Punisher was Lionsgate.
It was still was it not still?
I don't think Fox
put
was
out by Fox film.
Sure. But I'm not sure.
Isn't Lionsgate a distributor? I don't know. Yeah, I may be wrong about that, but the thing is, there was talk for a while, Dan, when they were talking about a shared universe over there, that it was going to be like X-Men and Daredevil and Punisher and Fantastic Four. But yeah, so I don't know. But I thought, I thought Fox had that.
Well, it looks like the '04 movie was made by Lions. It was distributed by Lionsgate and Columbia is a Sony subsidiary.
Oh, okay. Weird.
I don't know who exactly owned the rights. It's
odd. If they're a subsidiary of Sony, it's odd that there was no talk.
Lionsgate isn't a subsidiary of Sony, but Columbia helped distribute it in some places.
Oh, okay. No, I heard you with that. I'm just saying that, if they were involved at all, it's kind of odd that there was never any talk about, putting Punisher and Spider-Man together. But then with that Spider-Man, that would have been really strange.
That would have been really weird, yeah.
Probably not a good idea. Rasco, do you have one more question for us?
Yeah, I do. This is from All That Man 22. Do you guys think? And we kind of touched on this earlier, but I really wanted to give like a definitive answer to this. But do you guys think the lack of Ben Urich will hurt the show in the future? He's kind of Daredevil's Jim Gordon. I don't think so because
not after this season. Because you've got and I forget his name, but you've got the old boss. And he's awesome. And B, I really love Dan's point that, or I think it was Dan that said this, that Karen Page is kind of that now. So that's the other thing. But C, Daredevil has his own Gordon now. In that cop that got the promotion for taking credit for Daredevil's bringing in Punisher, and was really integral into this story this year, or this season, which I was kind of surprised by. That he comes back, he's in. There are 3 points where he's really important, and I think that just keeps going. So he kind of has a Gordon.
Yeah,
an actual police Gordon.
Especially the guy that was working with Karen from the paper, who's been Urich's friend. And I felt like from season 1, this is really strange, but one of the biggest takeaways from season 1, I was like, that guy was a very good actor in a very small role in season 1. And I noticed him in season 1. I remember looking at that guy. I was like, that guy's really good. I hope he sticks around. I'm just really glad that he came into a more prominent role now that Ben Urich was gone. And I think that it just shows how much the Ben Urich death worked, because we're still talking about oh man, Ben Urich's dead. I think that it was absolutely necessary to kill Ben Urich at the end of season 1, and not that I'm happy that he's dead, but I'm
I'm glad you're dead.
Looking back, I'm wow, I think that was a really effective way to end that season.
Well, and nobody saw it coming, and it was also a good move because it's not in a shock factor kind of way, but it establishes we'll deviate from the comics. We'll do whatever serves the story. And when you do that in a really character-driven way, because they probably didn't go into that season saying one of the, they've got their board of plans. One of the things we really want to do this season is kill off Ben Urich. It watches character-driven plotting where you get to that point and you go, what would Kingpin do here? He'd kill him. Are we really going to go there? Well, we have to. That's what would happen. But it also, again, establishes that we'll go our own way when the story really calls for it.
Did anyone else love how integral Turk became in the plot of this season by the end? I thought that was hilarious, because Turk is one of my favorite gag characters from Miller's run, and he shows up all over, Daredevil and stuff, but the way Miller uses him was always cool. And the recurring gag is that he gets out of jail and Daredevil immediately finds him and interrogates him for information and throws him back in jail, and they do that at the end of the season, and then he has the house arrest thing at the end of the season, and that's how the cops end up finding him. I thought that was all hilarious.
I had to watch it
off for his foot.
Oh man, and that was weird because they didn't. That scene was shot strange, Rasco, because we didn't back off before they left, so I was like, there must have been a couple of guys that grabbed him and just hauled out of there.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how was he walking? Dan, I had to see it a second time before I realized that was the same character.
Really?
I got to that and I was like, oh yeah, and I had even forgotten that he was in the first season, and I was like, oh, this is that first scene with him at the beginning is cooler. It's like, oh yeah, we dealt with this guy before. Okay, I forgot.
Yeah, Turk's hilarious. I hope at some point he gets thrown through the window of Josie's, because that's a thing. Josie fixes her window, and then Daredevil always throws Turk through it, and she's like, come on, I just got this fixed. So hopefully that happens.
Yeah, I mean, like, it'll be interesting to see how long it takes before we get back to something close to the normal Nelson and Murdoch status quo, because you won't see Josie's for a while the way they closed the season out.
That's true, yeah.
Well, do you guys have any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Not particularly. I'm just really excited for season 3, and you know, despite the reservations that I might have, and you know, my opinion might change when I watch it a second time. I don't know. But as of right now, I just feel really blessed that we have a show this good about Daredevil. It's really cool.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm not just sitting here trying to nitpick it. I'm just being critical.
I'm saying I watched it a long time ago, and I haven't thought about it as thoroughly as you have, because you've seen it like twice already. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm really excited about it. It's good stuff.
Two of these Netflix seasons every year. It's not. I mean, like, because for me, these are as exciting as the movies, and sometimes even more so. And so to get 2 movies a year and 2 of these, if they stay at this caliber, is a big deal. And Agent Carter, because it's decent.
Yeah.
Rasco, any final thoughts, sir?
Overall, I'm really, really excited for Daredevil Season 3. This just kind of cemented everything that I really liked about the first season. Well, a lot of things that I really liked about the first season, and it just kind of capitalized on a lot of those things. And so I'm just really excited to see where it goes in the future. It's hard for me to look at... I understand some people that maybe don't like this season as much as the first season because of how they think the ending hashes out, but for me, it's really hard to look at it as like this, like season 2 versus season 1, because like I kind of want to look at it as like episodes 1 through 4 of season 2 as like its own thing, and then like I could probably place at least a dividing point at some point in the season where I feel like this season's broken, like I said earlier, broken up into smaller parts, kind of. So it's hard for me to look at it as just like this season versus the first season, but I'm so excited to see where Daredevil season 3 goes, and is awesome. I love this show. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, if the if the Punisher was like standing on a roof sniping and had a gun to my head but far away and told me that I had to pick between these 2 seasons as far as which one was better, I'm with Rasco in that they're somewhat hard to compare because they make it very clear that they're telling a different kind of story in a lot of ways. It's still in the same genre, of course, but much more comic book, and until you get to the end, I don't think Daredevil is as conflicted and jaded and angsty as he is in the first season. But first season is hands down a better story. I think that this is a really good. If you looked at these like movies, it's a really good sequel. And like you rarely expect a sequel to be better than the first one, although we've been spoiled a little bit with some comic movies that have managed that. But yeah, I mean like looking at the first season of Daredevil and then the first season of Jessica Jones, I think those are both kind of just objectively, or at least I'm gonna say objectively in my opinion, forgetting what I like and just what I think is effective. If that makes any sense, I think that those 2 seasons are certainly better stories than this, but this is just as entertaining as either of those. So yeah, that's going to be it for us tonight. Everybody, thanks as always for watching our live Spoilercast. We'll be with you next Sunday night at 8 Central with our brand new live show, 0 Hour, where we'll be talking about news items from the previous week in pop culture. We'll talk about weekend box office, which has been really interesting lately, especially in the superhero world. And we'll be talking about new developments in comics and movies and TV and all kinds of things like that. We'll have as many of the Geekvolution panel of 7 as we can get on the show. Also, stay tuned for lots of other fun, exciting shows coming out this week, including Steve Baxey's premiere of Spy Movie Rewind, which comes out on Friday. And The Curious Low and I will be doing a brand new live episode of Comic Book Late Night, Monday night at 2 a.m. Central Time. So if you live overseas or you stay up all night, feel free to come in for that. And in the meantime, thanks as always for watching. I'm Admiral Logan, and this was Dan Torrey.
Salutations.
And Jackson Rasco.
Goodbye.
Once again, I was Admiral Logan saying good night. Good night.